Houthis did the unthinkable. They targeted what they thought was a defenseless cargo ship slicing through the Red Sea under the cover of night. But in a fatal miscalculation, it was no ordinary merchant vessel. It was a USS Gravely, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer of the U.S. Navy, bristling with advanced weaponry and radar, quietly escorting a European-flagged tanker just 500 yards away. Their cheap drones, relying on faulty intel from Iranian sources and low-tech guidance systems like modified Shahed models, locked onto the wrong radar signature, mistaking the destroyer's sleek silhouette for part of the commercial convoy. Big mistake. Then, this happened. July 20th, 2025, at precisely 2:03 a.m., the skies over the volatile waters of the Red Sea erupted in chaos. A swarm of 15 to 20 Houthi drones and missiles, launched from hidden sites along the Yemen-Saudi border, streaked toward their presumed easy prey. These weren't sophisticated weapons, just low-cost kamikaze drones buzzing at 185 miles per hour, programmed for maximum disruption. The Houthis, emboldened by recent strikes on Greek vessels like the Eternity Sea earlier that month, believed they could cripple global shipping lanes once more, echoing the Hezbollah airstrikes on the Syria-Lebanon border just 5 days prior on July 15th. What they didn't know was that the U.S. Navy Air Force had eyes everywhere. The USS Gravely and its sister ship, the USS Mason, were on high alert, forming a steel shield around the tanker convoy. These destroyers, each displacing over 9,000 tons and armed with Aegis combat systems capable of tracking hundreds of threats simultaneously, were no strangers to the fray. But in that fateful moment, the Houthis' error would unleash a storm they couldn't outrun. A brutal reminder of American might in the face of asymmetric threats. By the way, where are you watching from? Drop your city or state in the comments below. Remember, this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All scenarios are simulated and based on publicly available information, not official reports. They picked the wrong fight, a fatal error that turned the Red Sea into a graveyard for their drones. Join Navy Air Force as we dive into how this misfire sparked a relentless U.S. response, shattering Houthi illusions and securing vital sea lanes for the world. The Red Sea had transformed into a cauldron of conflict by mid-July 2025, a lifeline for global commerce now under siege from escalating threats. Just 5 days prior, on July 15th, Hezbollah's airstrikes along the Syria-Lebanon border had inflamed the region, inspiring groups like the Houthis to intensify their disruptions. Fueled by unreliable intel from Iranian channels, the Houthis mobilized from concealed bases near the Yemen-Saudi border, unleashing 15 to 20 drones and missiles toward a presumed soft target in international waters. Their aim: cripple shipping routes, carrying trillions in oil and cargo annually, forcing reroutes around Africa that had already driven up global prices. At the heart of this powder keg stood the U.S. Navy Air Force's silent guardians. The USS Gravely and USS Mason, two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers each displacing over 9,000 tons, were executing a routine escort under Operation Prosperity Guardian. Shadowing a European-flagged tanker convoy, the destroyers maintained a tight formation, positioned just 500 yards from the lead merchant vessel, to blend seamlessly with civilian traffic. This tactical proximity, combined with the Houthis' primitive targeting reliant on vague position data, created the perfect storm for misidentification. What appeared as another vulnerable hull on their outdated scopes was, in reality, a pair of lethal platforms equipped with Aegis phased array radars tracking hundreds of threats simultaneously, 96 vertical launch cells stocked with SM-6 missiles, and Phalanx close-in weapon systems ready to unleash devastation. The Houthis, operating with roughly 50 fighters scattered across rugged terrain, had grown bold from recent misfires, like the strike on the Greek-flagged Eternity Sea earlier that month, believing they could strike without consequence. But this time, their error would expose the fragility of asymmetric warfare against a superpower's precision. What would you do if you commanded that destroyer in the dead of night? The Red Sea wasn't just a waterway anymore, it was a powder keg, and the Houthis had lit the fuse. As the swarm closed in, the stage was set for a clash that would redefine dominance in these treacherous waters. At precisely 2:03 a.m. on July 20th, 2025, the tranquil waters of the Red Sea shattered into chaos as the Houthi drone swarm closed in. Launched from rugged hideouts along the Yemen-Saudi border, the 15 to 20 kamikaze drones, crude modifications of Iranian-supplied Shahed models, hurtled forward, their low-tech sensors fixated on what they misidentified as a vulnerable merchant hull. The Houthis' outdated intel had painted the USS Gravely as just another cargo ship in the convoy, its position mere yards from the European-flagged tanker, blurring the lines on their primitive radar scopes. No advanced cameras or AI distinguished the destroyer's angular silhouette from the tanker's bulky frame. To them, it was all one easy target in the dead of night. The first wave struck with brutal surprise. A leading drone, evading initial detection amid sea clutter, detonated just 100 yards off the Gravely's starboard bow. The blast sent a shockwave rippling through the hull, splintering an auxiliary radar antenna like glass under a hammer. Shrapnel tore across the deck, gouging shallow craters in the steel plating and slashing into exposed crew. 2 sailors on watch duty caught the worst of it. One suffered deep lacerations across his arm from flying debris, blood soaking his uniform as he staggered back. The other twisted away too late, fracturing his wrist in the fall. Medics rushed forward amid the acrid smoke, barking orders for tourniquets and splints, their voices cutting through the initial panic. The ship rocked slightly, alarms wailing as the crew scrambled to battle stations, caught momentarily off guard in the passive escort mode. But American discipline kicked in like a well-oiled machine. Within seconds, the Aegis combat system, its phased array radar sweeping a 360-degree arc, locked onto the inbound threats, calculating intercept vectors faster than a heartbeat. "Vampires inbound! Lock and fire!" shouted the tactical action officer from the Combat Information Center, his voice steady over the intercom. Vertical launch cells cracked open with a thunderous roar, unleashing a salvo of SM-6 missiles that streaked skyward at Mach 3.5, arcing toward the drone cluster like vengeful arrows. One by one, explosions bloomed in the darkness as warheads shredded the attackers mid-flight, debris raining harmlessly into the churning sea. The survivors dove low, skimming the waves in a desperate bid to evade radar. That's when the Phalanx close-in weapon system awakened, its automated Gatling cannons spinning up to 3,000 rounds per minute, radar-guided barrels tracking with unerring precision. A final drone twisted wildly, nearly grazing the Mason superstructure, but the CIWS buzzsaw tore it apart in a hail of tungsten, fragments scattering like confetti. The medics had the wounded stabilized in minutes, stitches applied, bones set, ensuring no loss of combat readiness. The deck cleared of debris, the destroyers surged forward, unscathed at their core. The sky lit up like a muffled thunder. Drones turned to confetti in a storm of American steel. What began as a Houthi ambush had flipped into a testament to U.S. resolve, but the night was far from over. The dust hadn't even settled on the Red Sea's choppy waves before the U.S. Navy's machinery of retribution roared to life. By 7:12 p.m., just 18 hours after the Houthi drones lit up the night sky, the Pentagon's command centers had greenlit a precision counterstrike that would redefine dominance in these contested waters. Emergency briefings in Washington echoed with resolve. This wasn't mere retaliation. It was a surgical dismantling of the threat, ensuring no repeat of the ambush that had left 2 sailors bandaged and a radar antenna in shards. Medics aboard the USS Gravely had stabilized the wounded in minutes, deep lacerations stitched, fractured wrist splinted, while damage control teams patched the deck gouges and rerouted signals through backups. The destroyers, hearts unbeaten, steamed onward, their crews channeling the sting into focused fury. Phase 1 unfolded with electronic shadows. EA-18G Growlers, electronic warfare jets from a nearby carrier strike group, lifted off like silent predators, their ALQ-99 jamming pods flooding Houthi radar frequencies with overwhelming noise. From 60,000 feet, they blanketed the Yemen-Saudi border launch sites, turning enemy scopes into static snowstorms. No alarms blared in Houthi bunkers. Their early warning net simply went blind, operators cursing as screens flickered uselessly. Phase 2 brought the thunder. FA-18 Super Hornets thundered from the carrier deck, wings heavy with AGM-158 Joule, ASSM stealth cruise missiles, and GBU-38 Joule DAM precision-guided bombs. Screaming low over the Arabian Peninsula at 500 knots, they targeted the heart of the Houthi operation: drone assembly warehouses and command bunkers near Al Hudaydah. The JASS Miss, flying at 500 miles per hour with a range exceeding 600 miles, slipped through the jammed defenses like ghosts, detonating with surgical blasts that collapsed reinforced concrete and ignited munitions caches. Secondary explosions ripped through the night, pillars of fire clawing skyward, as 15 to 20 Houthi fighters perished in the inferno, veterans and recruits alike, buried under tons of rubble. Beneath the waves, a Virginia-class submarine, its nuclear heart whispering silently, added the knockout punch in Phase 3. Surfacing just enough to launch, it unleashed a volley of Tomahawk cruise missiles, each streaking at 550 miles per hour over a 1,000-mile range toward residual targets. These land attack variants homed in on radar towers and supply depots, their blast fragmentation warheads obliterating what the jets had missed. But the real twist came from above. An MQ-9 Reaper drone, circling at 25,000 feet, captured thermal signatures of fleeing Houthi survivors scrambling from the wreckage. Satellites fed real-time data, turning their desperate escape into a tracked grid. A secondary strike zeroed in, Reaper-guided bombs sealing the fate of the remnants. They thought they had a way out, but satellites turned their escape into a tomb. The operation wasn't just vengeance, it was a masterclass in overwhelming precision, leaving the Houthis' drone capabilities in smoldering ruins and the Red Sea's vital lanes a step closer to security. As the smoke curled from the obliterated Houthi bunkers, the U.S. Navy's unblinking gaze ensured no loose ends. The MQ-9 Reaper drone, its infrared cameras piercing the desert haze, locked onto the thermal trails of fleeing survivors, scattered remnants of the 50-strong Houthi force scrambling through rugged wadis near the Yemen-Saudi border. High above at 25,000 feet, the Reaper's sensors fed live feeds to orbiting satellites, stitching together a real-time mosaic of desperation. Pickup trucks kicking up dust, figures darting between rocks, their escape routes mapped in unforgiving detail. Commanders aboard the USS Gravely watched the display, their earlier wounds, stitched lacerations and splinted fractures, fading into resolve. A final authorization crackled over secure comms. Reaper, engage secondary targets. No survivors. The drone unleashed its payload, Hellfire missiles streaking downward at 1,000 miles per hour, guided by laser precision to within 3 meters of accuracy. Explosions bloomed in quick succession, vaporizing vehicles and sealing off escape paths, claiming the last of the Houthi fighters in a blaze that lit the horizon. What began as a misfired ambush ended in total annihilation, with 15 to 20 confirmed dead in the initial strikes and the rest hunted down without mercy. To understand this dominance, look no further than the technologies that turned defense into devastation. The Aegis combat system, with its phased array radar, scans vast swaths of sky and sea, tracking multiple threats simultaneously and queuing intercepts in milliseconds, proving invaluable when the drones first swarmed. Complementing it, the Phalanx close-in weapon system unleashes 3,000 rounds per minute from radar-guided Gatling cannons, shredding low-flying intruders like paper in a shredder. For the counterpunch, Tomahawk cruise missiles, stealthy subsonic flyers with a 1,000-mile range, slip through defenses undetected, their terrain-hugging flight paths evading radar while delivering devastating payloads to bunkers and depots. The ripple effects were immediate and far-reaching. Global oil prices spiked 10% in the following week, as traders reacted to the restored security in the Red Sea. Shipping convoys, once diverted around Africa at massive cost, resumed direct routes through the strait, breathing relief into economies dependent on timely cargo. No escape, American eyes in the sky saw every desperate step, transforming Houthi arrogance into a cautionary tale for the world. As dawn broke over the Red Sea on July 21, 2025, the Houthi misfire's aftermath laid bare a harsh new reality for the region. What began as a bold but misguided drone swarm, 15 to 20 kamikazes confusing the USS Gravely for a merchant and the convoy escort, had spiraled into utter devastation for the attackers. From Yemen-Saudi border strongholds, their 50 fighters were decimated. 15 to 20 confirmed dead in collapsing bunkers and follow-up strikes. Drone sites obliterated, no escape from Reaper eyes. For the U.S. Navy Air Force, costs were light, the badge of unyielding toughness. The 2 sailors' wounds, lacerations stitched, wrists splinted, mended swiftly, shattered antenna and deck scars patched without halting ops. 0 fatalities, full readiness restored. Ripples spread wide. Oil prices jumped 10% weekly. Jittery markets reacting to the brief disruption before stabilizing with Houthi threats gutted. Shipping firms, previously rerouting billions in cargo around Africa at exorbitant costs, now resumed direct passages through the strait, alleviating supply chain strains and bolstering economies from Europe to Asia. The once besieged Aegean breathed freer, merchant fleets sailing with renewed assurance, their vital cargoes delivering on time once more. This clash forged a profound lesson in steel and fire. American discipline converts adversary blunders into timeless deterrence, safeguarding critical maritime lifelines against reckless challengers. In an era of asymmetric threats, U.S. technology supplants sheer numbers, enabling preemptive strikes that leave no avenue for escape. Iran and Moscow watched closely, their proxies recalibrating as the balance of power shifted unmistakably. Challenge the U.S. Navy, and your mistake becomes a brutal reminder to the world. Arrogance entombed beneath waves of unerring precision. Was the U.S. response justified, or should they have struck harder? Share your insights below. What would you command in that fiery ambush? If this saga of naval supremacy captivated you, like, subscribe to Navy Air Force for deeper dives, and comment your perspective. Remember, this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All scenarios are simulated and based on publicly available information, not official reports. Stay alert. The oceans hold endless stories.